What's going on, guys? James Blonde here with MMOHuts.com, finally getting the opportunity to show you the most epic expansion that's coming to Path of Exile, which is probably my all-time favorite free-to-play game. It's called the Awakening expansion, which comes out today, July 10th, and it's so detailed and extensive that Grinding Gear Games has had a dedicated team working on all of this new content specifically since the launch of Path of Exile itself, and that's a long time. I recently had the chance to chat one-on-one with Path of Exile's lead designer, Chris Wilson, who I've got to say has always shown the absolute maximum amount of passion towards this game. It really shows. We got to talk about some of the game-changing features, and to be honest, there's so much cool stuff coming to the game in this update that it's really going to be hard to share it all with you guys within this one video. And with that being said, the beta still leaves a lot to surprise when it launches, so don't think that this is going to cover everything. In this video, I'm going to talk about my experience in the closed beta, what changes are going to be happening that we know of, and overall what to expect. But first, I'm going to start off by talking about one of the biggest and most important parts to this expansion, in my opinion, for new and old players alike. Everybody's going to love this, and that is the death of Desync. That's right, I figured I'd tell you guys this first in case, and like in many cases, it's the sole reason you stopped playing PoE because it was very frustrating, especially in the hardcore aspect of the game, which is a huge part of it. And quickly, for those of you who don't exactly know what Desync is, or was, I should say, Desync is a miscommunication between the game client and the server, and it caused players to be in one location on their game client, but the server placed them elsewhere, making it seem like they were safe, but actually ended up killing them in a lot of cases, especially higher levels due to running past and kiting the large mobs. Now, the reason why they had this system in place is because it does wonders for them, having strict reinforcement on the game rules on the server side so no one could hack the game. Every movement would be checked, in this case, at the server, and a movement wouldn't happen if the server didn't agree with it. It was a problem then, but now it should be dead. It's been replaced by a new network mode called Lockstep, which keeps everything on the client side and the server side synchronized by handling the communications between the two completely different. The new system works in the same way as a lot of MOBA games. It works on latency. Now, you might be thinking this could be a big drawback for players with bad ping, but they've also implemented a lot of new servers to get players lower ping in their areas to make this new system that much more effective. They've introduced new servers in America on the West Coast and East Coast, a lot of new servers, and in Europe they've added one in London and in Frankfurt, along with several other places. On top of that, they still have the old system in place for players that still can't get low enough ping. So the cool thing is you'll be able to switch back and forth in the options just like this, and you'll be able to tell which one works better for you. So now that I've mentioned and explained a little bit of that, hopefully any of you guys not playing PoE because you feel that Desync was literally the only thing wrong with the game, hopefully you can go back to playing it now and look forward to and enjoy some of the new features the Awakening offers content-wise. So the new expansion introduces the much-anticipated Act 4, which takes you past Dominus and into Highgate, which is the new home area for Act 4. It looks like this. And just beyond this sealed gate here is the Beast within the heart of the mountain. We don't know exactly what this looks like. We know that the walls are covered with flesh and there's rivers of pus and all kinds of stuff like that. It's going to be crazy. We're going to see this on launch. The Beast is a nightmare incarnate, according to the lore, and it eats the souls of its prey. Those consumed become a part of the creature, so as you play through Act 4, you'll begin to see how the Beast pushes its influence on what you face inside. So pretty much everything is corrupted at this point, but this is also where you become reunited with some of the legends that you may have become familiar with in the past lore, like King Combe, Daresso, the Sword King, driven by a mad hope to purify his lost love, Merville, which you happen to kill at the end of Act 1, or Vol, Emperor of Purity. All in all, there are 9 epic-style boss fights in the new content, including a multi-stage final boss fight that might make Dominus seem like a breeze. Not sure just yet, seeing that they haven't released all of the content during the beta, keeping everybody on the level playing field for all the new challenge leagues that are coming, and I'll talk about that as well. All of the new bosses sport new mechanics that will definitely keep you on your feet, and a lot of the older boss fights have been upgraded and revamped, like Brutus and Merville. It just better fits the playstyle of some of the newer bosses like Dominus, so it all kind of matches up and keeps everything exciting. Now, one of the cool parts is, as I mentioned, the Beast has consumed these historical figures over time as they died, sort of a dreamlike state, and there are now areas manifested that are themed around the kind of things that they would dream about. So, as an example here, one of the new areas is Combe's Dream. So with this, you've got tons of lava, of course, and you've got all of his tribal followers that try to attack you. You've got the new creepy little tiki totem guys that are a pain in the ass to take care of. These guys are really tough, especially the unique ones that do group frenzy on death, and then you have to attack each component in hopes that the whole thing will drop something good once you've killed it eventually, and in this case, it didn't. And it's crazy, there's so many new uniques and rares, and they're so much more abundant. You've never seen this many together, like in every mob, than you ever have before on the normal difficulty. Before reaching Comb's Dream, I fought 2 uniques together in the mines and had some really close calls. And to be honest, it's the creatures in this area that creep me out the most. Something about the texture just kind of gets to me. But after making it through Comb's Dream, you get to face the king himself, and not only do you have these fireballs coming in from various sides that you have to dodge, his leap slam and ground slam, which looks pretty awesome, is a lot to handle, especially if you don't have good fire resist. And of course, he also summons minions, which I've got to say is kind of good in this particular build, because I'm using Poacher's Mark, which is a curse that makes enemies less evasive, and it gives me life and mana when I hit them, and if I kill them, it gives me more flash charges, which is perfect for having enough mana and life to deal with guys like Calm. Keep in mind though, this is Calm on normal, so he's tough, but nothing compared to the higher difficulty playthroughs. And the same thing goes with Daresso, the Sword King. I really like the gladiatorial arena mixed with the almost World War II trenches field of his dream. Here the common enemy are these rooster-looking archers, which look neat, and you've got massive pit bulls that attack you with group frenzy on death, of course. And the cool part here, though, is that you run through these sections of the map where you get closed off into a pit, and the enemies start to pour in randomly, and they become overwhelming as they increase in rarity. So they start off with normal enemies, then you go to magic, and then you get some uniques and rares mixed in there. But you have to defeat all the enemies to get through the gates to get to the next arena, so to speak. And if you make it through this area, you get closer to the grand arenas like this, where Daresso starts to tell you about his past and love for Marivel and his passion, which is obviously violence. And at first it's just a huge number of monsters with a couple of harder monsters, but as you work through them, I ran into like 3 of these, you see that there are more and more difficult mobs with rarer enemies and mad gladiators that get triggered as you move across the arena. So many dogs you have to take care of, or lions as they call them. Then eventually, before you face Daresso himself, you're fighting a stadium full of monsters as well as several unique mini-bosses, if you will. It can be pretty stressful, I can tell you that. I pretty much freaked out, had to kite everything, and decided to take my anger out on all these puppies. Lions, like I said. Yeah, that's going to be a tough Challenge League fight, I can already tell you. Daresso, on the other hand, shows off some really cool mechanics in his freaking arena made of swords. How badass is that? Some mean cold damage, too. And his attacks are pretty fast. Luckily, I had Mirror Arrow, which helps me relocate when needed.
That's not possible. My mana.
That fight was pretty tough. It was a lot harder than King Koam, and I also didn't realize that I accidentally turned off one of my auras. I had to take a precaution and set up a portal just to be safe. Probably could have gone without using the portal, but it would have been close. I guess I went a little too trigger happy with my health potion, so I didn't get the chance to conserve a little better. But I did get a really nice unique mallet as a reward, so I can't complain too much. And I didn't die, so good practice for hardcore. And speaking of uniques, there has been over 100 new unique items added, a lot of which have been co-developed by high-level supporters to the game, which is always awesome. Not only that, but there are 20 new active and support gems, my favorite being the new Elemental Golem gems, which you can get as part of a quest reward in Act 4. You can get either Summon Flame Golem, Summon Ice Golem, which is what I have, or Summon Chaos Golem. And besides their difference in elemental damage, they do different things on the battlefield, the Ice Golem being the fastest, for example, and gives you 20% increased crit strike chance, 20% increase in accuracy, not to mention they also have several spells on their own. The other golems give you various additional buffs that differ from each other, so depending on the build that you're going for, you're going to want to choose accordingly. And the best part about the golems, in my opinion, is that they act a lot differently than any of the other minion summons. They're a lot more intelligence, first of all, and they're more durable. And like I said, each one acts a little differently. The Ice Golem is actually really aggressive, preemptively attacking enemies as I move along. They don't exactly deal a lot of damage, mind you, but they can really help you out with the buffs they offer you and the distraction that they can provide a lot of times. It's like a really super cool pet. So all the new skills and items are added throughout the game evenly, not just Act 4 specifically, of course. And when talking to Chris Wilson, I asked how they went about deciding where to place these new skills. And so Chris told me that the group of developers working on The Awakening wanted some rebalancing with the new items and gems coming into the game. So what they did is they took out all of the existing quest rewards and then put them back in a more interesting and strategic way. And while doing this, they discovered unique opportunities to place in lower level but still highly sought out skills. And if they didn't have skills they felt fit these gaps nicely, then they would just create them. And so there's a lot of skills that are now in the game that are tailor-made to solve a problem that was previously there with leveling and progression. So with this, they've actually rebalanced the entire game from the very first level, which is brave, but also nice, and it makes sense with the changes that they've made to the passive tree. Now you have an entirely new type of item to look for called jewels, which you can actually socket into the passive skill tree itself that will grant you special bonuses to your character or influence areas of the tree itself, sometimes without having you travel down a certain path to get some wanted attributes. Some of these unique jewels interact with the passive skills in a radius around them, like you see here, which either changes their properties to something entirely different, triggering when certain thresholds are met, or sometimes they'll alter the rules of the tree itself, like converting all damage done with bows to damage done through melee. I did come across a jewel while I was playing another character, but didn't quite get to use it correctly before another wipe happened. But I can say that once you get a good understanding of what jewels are available and what you might want to look out for, they can take build opportunities to the next level easily. It will just take some time for players to figure out where these jewels will work out best and for what builds, just like anything else. And of course, the new expansion also comes with a new set of really interesting challenge leagues for the hardcore and not quite as hardcore players. This time we've got the Warbands League, which is the standard challenge league, and the Tempest League as the hardcore challenge league. According to Chris, these are the most complex so far because they actually cater to the players with the dream of being on top of the economy, so they're really focused on that aspect. In the Warbands League, warring clans are roaming around Rayclass. These are really tight-knit groups of enemies who cooperate and use synergetic skills to take you down, and at higher levels you see elite and leader enemies in the group, and these guys sort of change the strategy based on how you approach the group. So if you start attacking the minions, the smaller guys, then the leaders can actually step in and hurt you. And if you just go straight for the leaders, then all of the smaller guys sort of swarm around you. So they're very intelligent AI that comes into these groups. It's kind of cool. And killing these groups can be very rewarding. They each have exclusive unique items that only drop from them, which is a really cool way of hunting down and ensuring a unique item, but the presence of the warbands fluctuates over time and responds to the exiles' efforts to hunting them. So if everybody's hunting them, then they're going to be a little bit more rare. If nobody's hunting them, then you're going to see them more often. The Tempest League, on the other hand, which is favored a lot by Chris, seeing that he had the most influence designing it, is set up so that Ray class is affected by Magic Tempest, which can cause a variety of effects that can influence both monsters and players. So for example, if you're playing through the prison and there's a Tempest in the area, all the creatures in that area will have the same effects as the Tempest. This changes every hour, but you'll see these special markers on the ground that you can kind of manipulate by positioning yourself and monsters in a certain way, so that way when the Tempest triggers the markers, an effect is applied that can either buff you or hurt you depending on how you manipulate it. For example, one effect causes the monster to drop items that are entirely corrupted, or there's another one that raises up weapons to fight against you. There's one that changes the size of monsters, which is interesting because bigger monsters drop more stuff, but they're also more dangerous. So certain situations, you don't want the monsters affected by it, and in certain cases you might. Chris goes over the new leagues in more detail in the video you see playing here, so if you want to better prepare yourself for the new leagues, that's definitely the video to watch. Other than that, guys, there's still a ton of stuff not really unveiled, or discovered, I should say, until the release itself. Like I said, I was able to take down Comb and Daresso and make it through all the content on normal that was available in the closed beta, but the beast itself is still hidden, and is supposed to look pretty gory once you get in there. I've got a couple of screenshots that I got from Chris, but that's about it. Flesh-covered tunnels with walls, eyes looking at you, and rivers of pus and worms. basically everything necessary to ensure Path of Exile isn't making it to China. So yeah, there's still a lot to look forward to when it launches, and it's kind of overwhelmingly awesome, if you ask me. The new expansion is an absolute blast, and with the new features and absence of desync, it feels new, but still keeps the core gameplay that you love if you play the game often. Anyway guys, don't take my entire word for it. Check out the new expansion launching on July 10th. They're also keeping their supporter packs up, so you can get a lot of cool cosmetic items that way. And they'll be doing some live streaming events to go along with the launch of the expansion, so I'll probably join in on that myself, actually. Pick up more information about that at pathofexile.com. Thanks for watching, guys. For more information about Path of Exile in general, head over to the game profile at MMOHuts.com. And until next time, guys, that's going to be it for me. I'm James Blonde. See you out there, gamers.